All right, hi everybody. I'm Damian Cole. What the heck is this? I noticed these things. We're here in my buddy Jesse Peterson's uh, outdoor jungle uh, dungeon thing. I don't know.
It's the Nerd Castle.
The Nerd Castle. Um, this is the Living Overseas show, the show where we interview people and see what it's like living overseas and try to inspire people to go out and live overseas. Hey, get out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, that's right. Get out of there.
Get out.
Get
of
the
there.
heck out of there.
Get out of your little hole. Yeah, let's go. So, Jesse,
Yeah,
uh, where are you from?
I'm from Canada. A Canadian from the icy hills of Canada. I'm from actually a horse farm. I grew up as a horse farmer. For real, we have 40 horses way up there in kind of a central North Canada in Ontario, the northern of the Médoc, quite north. Yeah, basically.
Okay. The frozen tundra.
It's cold, but I like growing up on a horse farm
Yeah.
because I like when I was young the feeling, extreme feeling of riding a horse, like especially galloping. It's very free, very freedom. Obviously, we have lots of guns there, which we rarely shoot, but it's a good feeling to hold a gun. You know, it gives you a feeling of holding up a revolver of truth, metaphorically, to the world. Yep,
Nice.
that's
Nice.
stuff about me. That's
Nice.
my whole story. Well, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
I was really nice podcast.
Yeah. It's not a podcast anymore. It's a show.
A show. Yeah, it was a
Show.
good show.
Yes.
It's over.
No. Yeah, just starting. So you were in the Canadian Army. When did you join the Army? How old were you?
I joined when I was 21. I went to college for a year and I got into debt for $10,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, this cannot continue. At that time, 2001, obviously, was just after 9/11, so it was a big opportunity to sign up and get money for university. I went to basic training in Quebec, Montreal. Actually forget the name of it, but anyway, it was there, and then I went to Edmonton, the other side of Canada, and PPCLI, Princess Pat's First Infantry. It's been a while. First Infantry, light but mechanized. But it's a mechanized battalion where we work with labs or like tanks with tractor tires, and we dismount. And I had like a C9, which I think for Americans is called a SAW.
Yeah.
It has 200 round bed 5.56 ammunition.
Yeah.
We stick it on there, and that was my job basically. But you know, in the Canadian Army, it's a small army. We do a lot of different kinds of training, different kinds of jobs. Snowmobile warfare, yeah, that's in demand right now. It's very trendy. Caribou spotting, right?
Right.
Tundra. We did a lot of Arctic expeditions too, and of course desert expeditions with the when we did an expedition to Afghanistan in the war in 2006. Went to Camp Lejeune, Minnesota. Went around quite. I was at 5 years in the Army, and I liked it a lot because of discipline and especially how tough it is. Right, it's very tough for multiple reasons. One, because you get bullied as a new soldier, a new recruit, and you got to learn how to deal with groups of males. You learn to wake up early and like it, like we did today.
Yeah.
Woken up.
Yeah.
We're woke today at 5:30.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I could honestly, there's a lot to talk about there. It was a really good experience. Like obviously, like oh, you're going to the wars. What does that mean? I don't know, but it does mean building character. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Right? Meeting the Americans, the Royal Marines in Afghanistan. There was like, I don't know. I'm not a military historian, but I think there was like 20 countries there. In Kandahar, way out in the desert, it's dry.
Yeah.
You know, all males around. You forget how to talk to ladies when you're out in the desert. I was infantry, right in the front, so I was outside of the wire.
Yeah.
So I was hunting, basically with the lav. The Canadians were the first ones to do 30 days in Afghanistan in the desert. We carried all our rations, MREs. You know those rations, military rations? They're disgusting.
Meals ready to eat.
Right, I think that's what they're called. Yeah. You know, it was tough eating rations.
Yeah, I bet.
Because you're in the desert and you're just eating that for like a year. And you'd sometimes dream about like eating hamburgers and pizza. And I would just be like, oh God, like, you know, all of us were just, I could kill for a hamburger.
Yeah.
And then when you do kill, there's no hamburgers or nothing, just AK-47s and rags and just let down.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It wasn't as good.
Yeah. So Afghanistan, huh?
Afghanistan. I actually have a lot of cool stories about Afghanistan. If you want, you can edit them out.
No, tell me.
Or you can spice them up in the edit.
Tell me a good one.
Well, we on camera?
Yeah. That's a camera.
we were, like I said, we were way out in the desert. So we would go down to Kandahar. We go down to I forgot a lot of the names. Hajwali, Kot Valley, probably butchering that. Spin Boldak by the border. We were in the first time Canadians were in combat in since the Korean War, like 50 years. So the first time we were actually in real combat, there was a picture of me and a friend of mine carrying a body onto the plane in the airport. And that went across Canada. And that was kind of cool because I remember people in Canada were telling me, like, you're not going to be in combat. And I was like, yeah, I've heard we will. And they're like, no, you won't. Okay, and then the next day we're in the newspaper across the country. So it's kind of a weird gotcha.
Yeah.
But it's technically still a gotcha. I was really close with the Afghan National Army. I would run ahead a lot because I was a good runner, you know. And they would give me magical cigarettes. They would roll them up with one hand on their AK-47, and they could take all the tobacco out in one hand, roll these magical brown rocks of goodness, and then put the cigarette and then give it to me. And because I was close with them, they would give me like a whole bunch, right? And then I would share them with the platoon. And I came very close with the Afghan National Army, and that was good because then they're like, "Hey, do you want to come outside of the base one evening, wear a robe? You have to leave your gun in the base. I can't tell anybody, and we'll go have fun in town." And you know, I was like, "That's awesome!" Very naive. I was like, that's great, I really love you guys, you're awesome. And then there was a big attack, a bunch of them probably died. I was sad until I learned they were going to sell me for $1 million to the Taliban. So, you know, catch-22, really. Yeah, we did about a year there. I think Canadians do less than a year, Americans do a full year in Afghanistan. It's a long time ago now, like, that was in 2006. Lots I can't remember. Those are the really cool stuff. Actually, later when I came to Vietnam, I started working in the newspaper, which we can talk about later. But the first time the HMSC Regina, the first time 2 warships came to Vietnam, to Phan Rang, they invited me and the Governor General onto the ship, and for a ceremony. And the Governor General was like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And she's like, "You don't know my name?" No, sorry, I don't. And then she later apologized, and I was like, "Oh." And then we got drunk.
Yeah.
I drank all the big Navy boys' beer, right? And they're like, "Oh, he's infantry. He's probably a jerk." And I wasn't. I was really cool. And I even got in with the captain of the ship, the 2 ships, into the officers' mess at the end of the night, just trashed, high on charisma, until like I called him fat, and then he swear to God, he kicked me off the ship.
Yeah.
He's like, "I'm kicking you off my ship." I was like, "What?" Just joking. He's like, "Actually, it's very late." But still counts. Got kicked off the ship.
Nice.
Yeah.
Damn, bro.
So that was definitely a big part of my conditioning, my molding, right?
Yeah.
Turning me into the bearded man you see before you on camera here was that. That was a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would definitely say like a big part of it, let's say the Arctic. That was very cold, and we would sleep in like tents. I think I got to like with the wind chill -80 up there in Nunavut. I don't have dyslexia. I'm just out-hearted. So if I say things wrong, please forgive me, okay? We're way up there in the Arctic. We'd sleep in tents. We'd have gas stoves. That was really tough, but tough training like that is super good for you. Well, I also learned stuff. I know so much about survival that I'll never use. Just like when you sleep in the Arctic in the cold, you got to sleep naked in your sleeping bag because it traps the warm air inside. When you put all your clothes on and you're sleeping in there, like I heard a lot of people do freezing. That's not good. You're gonna freeze to death in there. So you get naked in your sleeping bag, just traps the cold air, live in there. So if you're planning to invade the Canadian Arctic, Americans, keep that in mind.
Do it naked.
Do it naked. Yeah.
Naked invasion.
Yeah.
Nice, bro. Wow. Okay. You want to tell me more stories or move on?
About the Arctic, right? Well, it's tough to be in the Army because a lot of people that get promoted ahead of you are numpties, as we say in the Army, or they call them shit pumps or something. They're just like, you get enough time in, you're going to get promoted and you're going to get a position of authority. And that really kind of bothered me. And of course, you got to do that because there's so many people, you got to keep moving up the ranks. But that's a lot of the reason that people leave, is it because I feel to be like, I know what I'm doing, intelligent, but there wasn't really good training to how to teach or how to work with your troops. We got bullied a lot, treated fairly badly, and then at the end they're like, would you like to sign up another contract? No. What about being a pilot? Would you want to be a pilot, Jesse? No. Which I don't regret it, but I thought about that a few times. Like I was saying.
So when and why did you move to Vietnam?
I always wanted to be a writer. I'm actually very fortunate, and this is a good trick for if you're going to have children or whatever. My farm is a big farm, big house. I think we had like 15 rooms or something in the house. Big, very old red brick house, 150 years old. And my father stocked it. My parents both like to read. They met in Kempville College and an agriculture college. They like to read books back in the day. Mm-hmm. If you remember what those are. And I had a... Yeah.
Yeah, I read them.
I don't know what those are.
I'm still using them.
Yeah. We had like about 1,000 books in the house. And I when I was young, I was introverted. I was very artistic. I would spend a lot of time alone. But I would read a lot of books. And I loved writing from when I was very young. And I wanted to study writing. When I was in the Army, I took night school to study writing. That helped. So I was like, when I was done the Army, the best trick for writing is you need experience to write, right? We know people in comedy who they're being kind of funny, but they have nothing to say. And it gets old and boring, right? If you have nothing to say, you need to go out into the world. I also forgot to mention I was sent to a military brainwashing prison where about 5 to 7 people a year go there for a month. That also was kind of important to my life.
Yeah.
The detention barracks in Edmonton. I call it Ed. That was rough. I was in there. There was nobody in there. I was alone, and had a lot of brainwash. It was like being on a meditation retreat because you're just alone. You got cameras and two-way mirrors, so you're just in there alone all the time. As I said, you were in alone there a lot of the time. Did I mention that? Yeah. It was good because it made me inside my head really think about life again and want to get out of the Army. They set me as an example before we went to Afghanistan to scare all the troops. Like, hey, don't get in trouble. We've invested $1 million on all of your education each for all the troops going to Afghanistan. Like if I fire a Carl Gustav bomb, it's $20,000 right? Training and flying me all over the world, all the food and things. That was $1 million. So they were scared. So they set up a trap. We were on a course, a driving and gunner course for the tanks labs, and they said, okay, you can go into town. It's the weekend, and you can have 2 beers only. And everyone said, yeah, we'll only have 2 beers. And then we had 1 million beers and got trashed. I remember somebody found me naked. I thought it was my own. I was in this shitty bathroom in this bar. Somebody's like, come on, get in the taxi. I was like, well, I'm home already. They dressed me in the winter. And then, okay. And Yeah. Then the next morning, like there was a big native guy got in a fight with the NCOs, and then they were like, okay, we need somebody to go guard his cell, so it's like a protocol, so he doesn't commit suicide. You got to send somebody. They asked me, and I said, stupidly, I said I'm too inebriated. I should have just said I'm a drunk. I'm a drunken guy. And then they're like, the guy that caught me, he's like, you're inebriated, like I'm being a smart, using my book learning words.
Yeah.
You're going to prison. And I was like, went into trial. Because there's a rule in the army. Anytime they call you up, you have to go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Inebriated, or even if you're drunk,
Yeah.
you gotta go. And I didn't go, even though they asked another guy first. But he was only drunk. He was not inebriated, so he didn't go to prison.
Right.
That was also a big thing. Detention barracks. So yeah. Anyways, after that, I was like, you know what? After the war, can you hand me that book?
Sure.
Contact Charlie. There's a book actually about my company, especially about my platoon. They wrote. We had a guy embedded with us, a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of jealous of him. This book has pictures of me and my platoon.
Mm-hmm.
This kind of details our company was in a lot of combat. In fact, my platoon at the end of it was basically unfunctional. There was mostly dead, or everybody was wounded. Even I got some shrapnel in the leg here. Don't be looking at my penis. Yeah, shrapnel in the leg. And then we're kind of famous. There's even a picture of me, of my team, my platoon, my section. It's like 8 people in a regimental museum, or there was in Calgary. I'm not sure if it's still there. So the thing is about veterans is people will always thank you for your service. They have the junior ranks. You know what? You might not know what that is. It's a veteran bar. So if you were in the forces,
Okay.
you can go there and you can drink. And there, even in my very small town of 1,000 people,
Yeah.
there's a junior ranks. So I could see my future. I'd be going there drinking like, listen to my war stories,
Yeah.
you know, and then you get depressed and you talk about all of the negative things and you cry and you become a drunk and a loser, and that's the end of your journey in life. And I remember after this one major battle thinking like, you know what, very emotional. I'm going to actually make something in my life. For my friends that they bit the dust that day, I was like, you know, I'm going to go and do stuff in the world. I'm kind of an adventurous person. I want to do it. I want to go write. I love writing. And so I decided to leave Canada because I didn't want to stay there and end up a junior ranks veteran. A man who is good at drinking beer. If anybody would talk about Jesse, they'd say, that guy can really drink some beers and cry.
Yeah. Yeah. Usually cry when I see him drunk.
Yeah.
Crying.
I've retained that title. I didn't give that up. So I went to Japan actually after that.
Okay.
And in Canada, I got my TOEFL. It's
Yep.
like teaching English foreign language. I got $1,000, 60 hours, an introduction how to teach language.
Yep.
Turns out I love learning language.
Yeah.
I didn't know that because in Canada we're forced to study French. I did French for like 10 years, and all I can say is if I meet the police here, I'd be like, je n'ai pas français, which means I don't speak French. And then they say, okay, go.
Yeah.
We won't take your money. Right? So I went to Japan, and I learned, just because of when you're learning language, if you really like to learn it, you know, I think of collecting vocabulary basically like collecting things. It felt like it's tangible. It's like, oh, I got a new word that I can use. So I love learning language in Japan, and I went for an excellent company in Japan called Peppy Kids Club. It's huge. They really teach you how to teach well, how to manage classrooms, how to be very creative. And number one, their always thing was that Peppy means like Genki means be fun. They just have fun, big energy with the children, and I learned that skill right off. And then we had workshops, and we had a great teaching environment with the Japanese teachers and the Western teachers. A lot of really good work, and I loved my time there so much. I really liked living in Japan. But then I was like, you know what? If I'm a writer, I got to keep going. I'm gonna go around the world, and I went to Vietnam next, and I became a manager of a Korean school here. I helped to start it, and with my military discipline, going on time and not being a drunk. That was a big problem in Vietnam about 10 or 11 years ago when I was here, because a lot of people would there were so few decent English teachers at the time. They just be drunk and then they couldn't fire them, right? So I started to give them penalties. I was like, you got to show up half an hour early, just like we did in Peppy Kids Club. Put the discipline down, and that kicked all of the shit pumps, as we say in the Army, kicked them out. We made some good curriculums, and I did that for a few years. Really learned some skills in management of language centers. And it also, as a side quest, as a nerd reference, it's a side quest, I was able to learn kind of, sort of, how to learn language better, of course, and I started into Vietnamese. Now, you can't learn Vietnamese the same way you would learn Japanese, or really the same way they teach English, which isn't really that good. Vietnamese, we might as well go into Vietnamese.
Yeah, go.
Might as well go. So in the Vietnamese, I learned like, pronunciation, right? They had 6 tones,
Yep.
and that is tough as heck. You know, excuse my language, extremely tough. So I just like focused on the tones for a while, and I realized living in Ho Chi Minh City is very extremely difficult to learn the language, as you know, because people will pretend they don't even know what you're saying, or maybe they generally don't even know what you're saying, or they gaslight you, or they say this term in Vietnamese, which is like, hey, chet ling, and then they laugh, which means, if I knew what you were saying, I would die. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll test that theory. And I moved to a small town in the north, and where they only spoke Vietnamese. And then I came back, and I was like, now I speak Vietnamese. Now let's see if you die or not. That was a lie. Wasted my life. That wasn't even true. But actually, that was another thing about being, I don't know what it is. It's like I had kind of like a little bit of ADD, as you might be able to tell. I don't know. Or just being an artist, or growing up free on the horse farm. I hate math. I don't know. It was just my brain. And I also felt a little bit insecure that I couldn't do math or something, and maybe my father wanted me to be a lawyer. I don't know if math has anything to do with that. But I love drawing and writing. I'm a very creative person, extremely creative. But I really felt a little bit down, like I couldn't learn French. I couldn't, do math. So I really tackled Vietnamese with a vengeance, especially when they said "Heo Chet Ling." And I was like, you know what? I'm really going to get on this. So I moved to Tai Binh, small town in the north. Worked for a big company there, and really melded with the locals, right? It's like in Japan, I purposely moved to Kanazawa, which is kind of far. I was like, okay, I'm going to be in an environment where I'm forced to use Japanese or nothing. Right. In Saigon, they speak English really well. Yeah. Then I moved to Hanoi. Yeah. It was really tough there. I don't think I actually have friends from the north still, but I have so many friends in the south. I fit in better in the south, right? Learning Vietnamese, I was working with the government there, like a lot of big wigs. That's a funny term for a bald man. A big wigs in the government, so we'd be playing tennis, and then they really, in the north, you have to hit chup sa khoe, and you have to like invite them to drink, and then you invite them back, and you can't use the wrong tone, and then they can kind of like yell at you. As a Western person, especially somebody who's independently built, I don't like to be under anybody, right? It's also a Western Eastern kind of thing. If I like you, I'll invite you. If I don't like you, don't force me to invite you. But I had to go under the radar and kind of do it, but it drove me insane to be under like a Chu Nghĩa Phong King is like kind of a feudalistic ideology, and I don't like that, right? It's in the pronouns too, actually, right? Chi, con, an, am, chu. With the pronouns, it bothers me a little bit because you automatically have to give reverence and respect to somebody based upon their age. Of course, I want to respect my elders, but I don't give respect when it isn't deserved, right? I know that's a lot. I'm just rapid firing.
That's fair enough.
Yeah.
I'm making my job easy.
Yeah.
So
you can honestly go on.
So what are some tips? What are your main tips of learning Vietnamese? I've been trying forever. And what would you say to someone that wants to learn Vietnamese, or pretty much any language, but let's say Vietnamese? What are like your top 3 tips or strategies?
Well, with Japanese, I had the word cards.
Right.
And because the consonant vowel, it's like ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, na, ni, nu, ne, no. It's very easy just to study the vocabulary.
Right.
And you can skip kanji for speaking, basically. But for Vietnamese, The problem is if you learn all of the vocabulary right off, there's a thing called fossilization, which means that the vocabulary gets frozen or like fossilized in your head.
Yeah.
The problem why older people have a problem learning language. So if you learn all the vocabulary before you learn the pronunciation, then you're going to speak incorrectly. Even sometimes I'll say a word and it's like, oh, I must have learned that a long time ago because I don't say it. You have to drill the pronunciation. So I had somebody just, not even a teacher, just like somebody, a friend of mine is like, okay, sit down, read these tones, and I'll read them. And when I'm wrong, correct me. And be brutal, you know, like, nga, nga, zo nang, zo nang, zo sak, and just do that for like a year before I really tried to even speak very much.
Yep.
And then when I could start to like do the words and my brain is like got them all fossilized and fixed in there,
Yep.
I could do sentences. Another number two, let's say that's number one. Number two is I like jogging, so I would put the earphones on and just listen to sentences. So you learn by sentences, right? Because you want to learn natural. A big problem I see with Vietnamese people when they're learning languages, they're trying to connect all these vocabulary together and make a sentence that's very unnatural, and the intonation is bad. It just sounds a mess. I like to say it the way the Vietnamese say it, right? And that's how you got to learn a language. Learn it the way they use it, right? Just listen and repeat. Listen and repeat. Number three, of course, is you can't just learn. Like I tried to learn Vietnamese in Canada, I couldn't. You got to learn it with them because language is communication, and the content of what you're saying is also very important. I learned, especially from writing for Vietnamese for so many years, whatever I might be writing about, they might not just understand just because like they can't really picture it in their mind. If I start talking about things I'm doing in the farm in Canada, whipple trees and get the stone boat, you know, when you're working on a farm. Get the harness on that horse there. Get up in your place, Jake. They're not going to know what I'm talking about. But if I go to the Miền Tây, the Mekong, and I learn about the way they make food, right? That's something I can share with, and it's very easy for them to have a marker. Like, oh yeah, I know what he's talking about. And then I really learned about communication comes down to like, what are the things people actually normally talk about? And they think about that the most. Like Vietnamese, I think it's universal across the world, but especially with Vietnamese food. You know, there's so much delicious food here compared to Canada, where we eat like a baked potato, and we're like, that's hot, you know, haute couture. That's the best stuff ever. It's cold, man. You know, Canadians don't eat well. Same with the Brits, I guess. But a burnt steak and a squash. I mean, here there's so much just like you can pull food off the ground. Or off the tree, off the ground. Pull it right off the ground there and put it in your mouth. Right. So that was another thing. Just learning about culture, how to things. Obviously, like we're in comedy, we learn about comedy. So it's like you're talking about stuff that nobody can really cares about. It's hard to make it funny. Right. For the audience, you gotta feed them chicken feed, as Kirk says.
Right.
You say stuff that they all know about, like, oh, the Olympics, right? Topical stuff. Same with language and communication. That's all kind of a universal thing there. And a really big part of my job now, if you want to see about so I work for this is a magazine. It's a dangerous job. I work for a satire magazine. Right? If I make a mistake in grammar or in spelling, my boss will yell at me. But if I write it correctly, I'll go to prison and be rectified in my rectum. Right? It should be. I can't find.
So that's.
I'm in this anyways. I have my own column in there.
What's it called?
Troi Academy. It's a Vietnamese satire magazine.
Check it out.
And satire here is pretty cool. You might be like, how can they write satire? Well, we can write. We have a license to satire when you work in that magazine. This is I am so extremely lucky, and it's another reason it's kept me held my Vietnamese, as they say, held my feet to Vietnam, because I love my job so much. Because anybody that works for this magazine is actually kind of has a prestigious position, and I'll be able to work there for years. I have to work very hard, which we can talk about. Like writing for that magazine is tough. I have a lot of friends I've tried to introduce. My boss is like, oh, get some people, but you know, they'll write their best one article, and then the second article, it won't cut it, right? You gotta like, I gotta work for a week to get an article out. I gotta think about it, go to the cafe, talk about it. Then I go to like the reason I go to open mics to do comedy is to test what I'm gonna write in the magazine for material, and I see if that's funny or not. Okay, maybe I won't write that, of course. That's a big part about. I don't know where I was going with that, ladies and gentlemen, but it was probably going to be interesting if I had a good conclusion there. Writing, yeah.
Mm.
Well, okay.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a lady pulled up outside my house that made me feel nervous. I started actually writing for the newspaper. I've written for BBC. I've written for a lot of big newspapers. I started with small baby papers in the north.
Yeah.
Just working. I was like, okay, I'm going to start writing small articles. And I eventually wrote about the problem with Vietnamese 10 years ago that wasn't really clear, is that they're all learning pronunciation from people who had terrible pronunciations. Of course, the students did too. So I wrote a big article about that, went very viral for VN Express, the Vietnamese one. Yeah. And then I started to get kind of more renowned. And I started to write a lot more. I wrote for VN Express Gap Yin, which is a national column. Gets millions of views, millions of readers, for about 4 years. That was extremely competitive because I would try to get 2 articles a month, which was for 4 years was the most. And you'd want them to be extremely good, right? So you'd really edit them. You need to have good ideas. So you need to have like your head on straight, understand how the world's going, right? You want to be basically sober a lot of the time, right? You don't want to be like an agent of chaos, sowing seeds of distortion, and then trying to publish that in the world, right? I really learned about why first principles are important in writing. Like, what you can see is probably true outside of that. Trust CNN, right?
Yeah.
Trust Don Lemon. That guy knows what's going on. No, but I learned first principles, like, especially living in Vietnam, they really are very focused on family, then community, and then just build chains out from that. And they try to connect the whole country on basically let's bring our people together. And that's kind of their biggest philosophy. I've been reading some deeper writing books in Vietnamese right now. And I've been, like, I kind of knew already. People tell me all the time, but that's what I really worked on. While I was writing, because it was so tough, I had to learn a lot of skills and controlling my own mind. So we did meditation this morning, right? Yep. We always do different kinds. Yep. We exercise our mind and our body. Man, I've done a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Troi.
Oh, tell them about Troi. Troi is you tell them. What's Troi Academy? Tell them about Troi.
So Troi started out. Okay, Troi now will teach it at the FPT University once a year. It's a course, and then mostly as a hobby, we do it together here just to keep the information going. It's mind and body, and I kind of did it from learning so much bad education. I was like, we need to really do something that makes my mind clear. So the meditation, right? Especially mindfulness, just being able to keep your errant thoughts away, right? Being able to control your mind, being able to be quiet and focus. Because writing is tough, especially for me. I have to really be very creative and let chaos of thoughts come to my mind. And then I have to have a period where I sit and I choose what's good. And of course, memory palace is so important. If you guys don't have a memory palace, please learn how to make one. Yeah. We have a memory palace. And that really, like, I can use a memory palace to store things in my mind. It works for comedy, and it works for writing. So I'll go somewhere, I'll listen to the Vietnamese talking, I'll gather up all that gossip, I'll gather the topics of the day, I'll put them in my mind, my memory palace, I'll store them in there, and I'll go home and they'll be right there. You know, it's faster than taking notes and more efficient. So I was like, oh, I learned the memory palace first, and I was like, well, this is a great tool. Why don't they teach this in high school? You know, you can build people. A lot of the priests and preachers and things, they memorize the Bible with building memory palaces that are just like 1,000 rooms, and they put all of the scriptures of the Bible, and they just go in there and look at it. If you don't have a memory palace, it sounds weird what I'm talking about, but that's basically how it looks. You just go in and you visualize, And because your mind works by spatial memory, right? I'll give you an example. If you ever left your keys somewhere around the house, your kind of brain knows where they are when you come back. So it works by putting objects. So I have a joke about hotels, which goes like, when I first came to Vietnam, I thought they napped a lot. I was like, there's so many of these hotels by the hour everywhere. 60,000 Vietnam, like $2 an hour.
Yeah.
They must be the biggest nappers. And then I learned, oh no, those are for sex. They're actually very active indeed. So I put a picture of a hotel in my memory palace, and then that's done. I go to the open mic, and I look, what's first? Hotel, tell the joke, right?
Yeah.
So that's why we made Troi. Troi is like tools. We do Wim Hof breathing. That's a tool. People should do that. When I used to teach at the high schools, and it was tough because the kids are like, I'm a little kid and I'm gonna kick you, and why are you bold? And I run this classroom, and I'd be like, no, right? And when they start fires and stuff and revolt and take over the classroom, that stuff's terrible. So a lot of teachers lose their minds and get angry. So a very important thing I found for teaching is to always try to be inspirational, even though you want to. And like with comedy, that helps with teaching, because I went in with like, I'm going to be happy today. Like I told you with Peppy Kids Club, I'm going to have high energy. I love you kids. I love teaching. All my lessons are going to be great. So that's why I learned meditation and Wim Hof. So when I do that on the way to school, so when I arrive, I feel really refreshed. I kicked out all of the cortisol, all the stress hormone out of my stomach, and I go in really happy and refreshed. So that's another tool, right? There's so many tools that I added to Troi. We tried some, we got rid of some. So I started teaching it as like a mental tools course that uses exercise and so to make things more efficient. And that's basically what Troi is. A way of living. It makes things a lot better.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. Yeah. Check it out. Maybe you have a website, right?
You have a Troi website?
We'll put a link.
It's just recently, besides the teaching course, but like for a hobby, we like to get people together. So if you're in Yabea, you gotta wake up early. That's the only thing. But waking up early also puts hair on your head.
Not for me.
Okay, that's a lie. On your chest. Anyway, it's good to wake up. We're there at 5:30. I'm a little severe from being in the military, so I'm like, don't use your phone and be on time. But you have to have somebody, that pillar of discipline, to drag the others along. So that's kind of a sacrifice that I will have to do for Troi. Keep everybody involved.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of brutal. We don't get a lot of people to join, but that's fine. Like, it's good for us. It's really good.
Yeah. I've been doing it. Yeah, we get up at 6. No. We start at 5. We were starting at 5 a.m. Still dark out, running kilometers, then doing like HIIT workouts, and then doing some meditation and breathing exercises after. Then we'll like split up and practice language. So yeah, it was really cool.
And we do the memory palace challenges. So we memorize 15 things, and then we see how fast they can just recall them. And that really works your memory really well.
Yeah.
I've done, not to brag or anything, but I've done comedy in Vietnamese, right? I did a 30-minute show, which was very successful. And it's very tough to do comedy in Vietnamese for 30 minutes. So I used a memory palace. I gave all of the jokes had a symbol, and I put that in a very large memory palace. And then I just went in and did the show and looked at the jokes. And I've recorded that one. It's on my Facebook. Yeah. And that, like, I killed it, that show. I did really well. I think it's actually, it was so tough. I was like, I'm going to stop doing Vietnamese comedy now. But I did a good job. I'm out. I was like, good. I stopped for a little while after doing that.
Nice. So you do Vietnamese comedy, and you wrote Vietnamese books. How many books have you written in Vietnamese?
5.
5.
Yeah, well, this is War. This is self-published. This one is by the biggest publisher in Vietnam, Nha Xuất Bang Trea. And then this one is also the biggest publisher. And I got a slang book that I published online. And then I have another one that's published by another publisher. And I just like writing books, because who knows? I think a lot from growing up on a really beautiful horse farm. and it wasn't really expensive because it's kind of out there, but it's a very beautiful farm. We got a deal on that old drafty house because it was so old, but it was awesome. But living, like going to the forest every day, there was wolves, bears, muskrats, and beavers, and ghosts and stuff out there. And you know, I remember when I was young. This is a true story. It's dark out there. My mom was like, "Go out in get the groceries from the." She left them in the car, which is down the lane. I was like, "No, Mom, I don't want to go. I'm scared of ghosts, Mother." And my mom said, "You go outside right now, or I'll." And I was like, "Okay, I'm going right now." And then from then on, I was never scared of ghosts. I was just scared of women. Right?
Yeah.
But no, I think living out in the country was really got me into writing because I have a very vivid imagination and reading books and a lot. I love writing so much. I'll never be a rich man like who's a rich man we know? Like Kirk Ramsden,
Right.
a comedian, you know,
Wealth
wealth in hair at least. You know, he's got a wealthy mop of hair.
Yeah.
But I swear to God, right now, I'm living so happy right now, like really good. And it wasn't easy, you know. COVID, I'm so angry at the world for the COVID fiasco. I won't get into that, but I was pretty down, right? I wasn't getting my vitamin D or exercise. My health was going down just because of that. You know?
Where were you? You were here.
I was here.
In this house.
Yeah, I couldn't go out into the sun, and I couldn't make friends. I couldn't, as an introvert, you know, I need to get out once in a while.
Yeah.
Right? I still liked it, but it was just really unhealthy time, and I was I go up and down, but now for a long time my serotonin level is up because you know I do kickboxing 10 minutes a day. That gets your serotonin up a little bit. You feel kind of confident. Your body's tight from that. I do the exercise fairly regularly, mostly just CrossFit and cardio, and a lot of meditation. And that regulates my hormones really well. I eat a lot of meat, as you can see, because I'm so beefy.
Right.
You know, and a short king, as they say, right? You can't tell from this camera,
you're not
but
that short.
I'm about as almost about as tall as you're. About 9 foot tall, aren't you?
Yeah, 6'1".
I'm a 5'7".
Are you only
Running
5'7"?
Yeah. What do you mean only? You're just pretty tall.
Yeah.
No, but anyway, it doesn't matter. But I'm feeling, I'm short and bald, guys, you know. But I still feel good, you know. A beautiful lady. You got a beautiful lady. You know, I'm 44, guys, so I'm going to try to have a family, get married late in life. But, you know, if you keep your health up, I think it's fine. I'm very happy with my life. And also, like, I'm working on my new project, if I may. Talk about me for a little bit, guys.
Yeah.
You know, you've been on there talking about your stuff forever. It's my turn.
Go ahead.
For a little bit. I love Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, I gotta confess. I gotta get it out. I know it's kind of a perversion, but I love it a lot. Of course, I'm a DM, a dungeon master. James Lumley, you know, a famous personality. Some people call him Jumney Diamond. He says, oh, he's the best DM and that he knows. He only knows one, maybe two. But I like it. So we were playing on Saturdays. So I love a DVD. We've been playing. I played when I was young back in Canada. The nerd with a bunch of nerds with magic cards and under a table. But I play now in my house and playing for almost 4 years here in Vietnam. It kind of grew to where I was like, if I'm gonna be so nerdy and making these stories, making these characters, I like playing characters, right? Get better at that. I might as well just and I'm a writer. I might as well use D&D to make stories and books and things like that. So I decided to write. Let's do a kind of a watered down science fiction, very fun, comedic satire science fiction in Vietnam for Vietnamese, right? Because I know I can get it published. I know I have a really good work ethic. My boss kicks the crap out of me if I don't write well. So I've been doing that for writing. So I designed like a game. A bunch of us played together. It's really fun. You can go check it out. It has no subscribers. Well, now it has a whole 10, so we've rounded it up, right? But that channel we filmed it and we played, and that's just to get me ideas for content, so I can go back in and look at when we were playing. Is like, that's a really good dialogue. Those characters are awesome, and that's like a new technique. Maybe somebody's done it before. Maybe Dan Harmon. I don't know. But I thought about using that to come up with ideas to make books, and then with books, once I get these books done, a trilogy, then I write a screenplay, and then probably a play. All kinds of different writing will make you a better writer in this regard. So that's why I love Dungeons and Dragons so much.
Right. So, Dungeons and Dragons, all that stuff, but all that's feeding this movie you're writing, right? You want to talk about the movie you're writing?
Well, that's it. Like,
that's it.
Because I work for Swedbank Troi is closely related to my newspaper. If I make an awesome product, right, an awesome story, it's easy for me. It's not easy. I know how to set up the goal. I know how to run at that goal, and I can live next to nothing just so that I don't really go out for fancy seafood dinners. Yeah. I take my lady out to seafood. I can see all the food because I can live like a savage from my military training, just because it gives me the time to work on what I'm really working on. So I'm working really hard on this project. So once the books are done, I use that to translate it to a script, right? Which wasn't really my idea. Like this company here, it's like, we need a script from you. Can you write a script? And I was like, not today. I gotta do it my way. I don't, because like I've never written a script before. Let me make something awesome first, and then I'll get back to you. But that's been awesome, because that's like they write movies, a very famous, one of the best Vietnamese movies. I don't think you've seen it yet. I think it's called Yellow Flowers on the Green Grass in English. It's one of the best Vietnamese movies, written by Nguyen Nguyệt Anh. So that director and the screenplay, they like me. They understand I'm also a person that really likes to write with nature and mix with humanity, and hopefully with science fiction. So they invited me. They kind of take me under their wing. They want a script, but in the meantime, they get me to do their plays. So you went to that one radio play.
Yeah.
That was like a radio show play. It was very interesting. That learned me. I learned how to be a better actor, follow the script, and it's in Vietnamese. So I started to become Christian, who is like he works at an embassy, and he's May guy, he's girl crazy. So he comes into an interview, he tries to pick them up. I actually hated his character a lot, because he was going for like women who are about to be married, and like, why don't you just switch to my team? I didn't like that guy. I had to go my own way. I didn't like my parents. They're not wealthy, but they have 40 horses. But I decided, like, I'm an artist. I don't think they really understood clearly like how much of an artist I am, how kind of crazy I am. So it was kind of hard for them to really like decide, you need to go down this path. Because if I had gone down the path of being on the farm and being a farmer and my father is a farrier. It's such a cool job. My family, they're all big people. I think my mom, I'm just kidding. She did not perform any indiscretions, but perhaps I have this theory, like, apparently when I came home from the hospital, they like put me in a crib and it was really cold and my feet froze. I was wondering, did that make me short? Or was it because I threw all my sandwiches into the into the forest on the way to the school? I didn't like eating. I don't know. Anyways, maybe it would be hard to be a farrier for me. I could probably do it, get big forearms, but yeah, that is a good. It would have been a good career path for me. I would have like 2 cars, a big house. I'd be married by now, and my kids would be, being a big pain in the butt on podcasts complaining about me.
Yeah.
But I had to make my own way. So I really believe in the power of the individual, and kind of like the bootstraps thing. And I know that's like a dirty word, pulling yourself up by the bootstraps, but family. If I'm gonna work hard, then I definitely want to involve myself with people in my community who work hard like you, right? Yeah. Damon Cole is very awesome. He's always doing lots of stuff. He works out. He toes the line. So you get enough awesome people like that. They all toe the line. They work together. And I have, because of just being kind of a hard ass on my own self, I have a lot of amazing friends who I like to talk to, and they have similar kinds of ways, right?
What advice would you give to someone that wants to move, that wants to leave Canada or USA, let's say Canada, and wants to move to Vietnam, or what would be the first thing that they need? How much money would they need? What do you think?
Oh well,
Just go, or save up $5,000, get a TEFL. What do you? How do people that want to follow in your footsteps get out of Canada? What would they do?
I don't think you should just go, because I think you should do some preparation, because I actually do have a problem with a lot of there are a lot of expats that just come here as kind of like bums. They're driving around without their helmets on, you know, and
so how could they prepare?
they make a bad image, right? So I think, yeah, you can get a TEFL. You can kind of like
TEFL
start
teaching English foreign language certificate.
Yeah, you can get it. There's like, if you're gonna be a digital nomad, that's also kind of cool here, right?
Yeah.
You should have some preparation. You don't need a lot, but another one is you can do, like I said, do the listening for Vietnamese. You don't really need to try speaking, but you can find online YouTube and just practice the listening, because it's definitely, my life is also very awesome because I can talk to my girlfriend's family, who are very cool, but their politics are extremely different. But I get it, right? I understand where they're coming from. They're like, we had a war with America, and that's why people know the geography. So that's good, right? They know the difference between Vietnam and China. So they're like, that's a great thing for geography, a bonus.
So basically learn the culture, don't just come here and if you're a scumbag at home, don't come here to be a scumbag. Like have a purpose.
Apparently, it's not true that a change is as good as a vacation. I don't know, but I definitely think that if you're coming here, you should have a goal to uplift yourself.
Yeah.
Are you only coming for a year? That's another thing. Is like, a lot of people tell me they didn't learn Vietnamese because it's such a big investment of time. It's really hard. They say like Vietnamese isn't as difficult to learn as Japanese and other things, but I kind of disagree. Like, that pronunciation is like the Great Wall of Vietnam. You can't really jump over that hurdle. All right, it's like it's tough to. It is tough. So how long are you going to spend here? If you're going to go and learn Vietnamese, it's definitely going to help you. But if you're only going to be here for a year, it's not really an investment. But that's why Vietnamese feel very confident talking about Westerners, because like they don't know what we're saying for sure. Like 95% of the Westerners, they'll try to speak Vietnamese, but the pronunciation barrier is too tough, and they don't know how to speak it, right? So figure out what you're doing. If you're ever going to come and if you are a shitbag, a numpty, a fucking shit pump, you know, no names, guys. Don't be crass. But use the opportunity to definitely uplift yourself, write down some goals, get out your notebook and write stuff down every day, and then try to uplift yourself in that manner.
Wonderful. That's beautiful. Thanks for being on the show, Jesse Peterson.
Oh, you don't want more politics from Jesse Peterson?
No, we don't want any. We don't want it all.
The world's changing.
Check out his books. I'll put some links down below of all his stuff he does. And thanks for watching. Living Overseas Show. Check it out.